When I bought the estate 6 years ago, it was nothing but a broken skeleton of a once beautiful homestead, rotted porch, cracked windows, vines strangling the front gate like it had pissed off nature. But to me, it was perfect. 8 acres of peace, freedom, and a chance to rebuild something with my own hands. No HOA, no weekly lawn inspections, just land, sky, and the occasional squirrel with attitude. Fast forward to last weekend, and the place looked like a page out of a wedding catalog. White tents lined the backyard, string lights crisscrossed the trees, a live jazz trio warmed up near the fire pit, and my wife, Kate, birthday girl, queen of the night, was glowing in a navy dress that made me forget the last 10 years of stress. It wasn't just a party. It was a celebration of everything we'd built from scratch. 60 or so guests had shown up. Friends from the contracting business, family from Denver, even the mayor of a nearby town I'd helped with a municipal build-out last year. There was food, drinks, live music, and not a single HOA clipboard in sight. Or so I thought. I first noticed the cluster of figures near the back fence while helping one of Kate's cousins set up the drink table. 3 of them, all middle-aged, standing still like garden statues in pastel polos and big sunglasses. One woman had a phone raised, clearly recording. Another guy was pointing, not exactly blending in. "Those yours?" I asked Kate, nodding toward the fence. She squinted. "Nope, never seen them. Why?" "They're casing the party like they're planning a raid." She laughed, but I didn't. My gut had that twitch it gets before something dumb happens. An hour later, while I was refilling the bourbon station, a guy in a security-style vest strolled up to the gate. Stocky, crew-cut, cheap aviators. The name badge read, Eric, HOA Patrol. I kid you not, HOA Patrol. Like this was Fallujah. "Evening, sir," he said with a fake friendly tone that made my molars itch. "We've had some concerns from residents about an unauthorized gathering. Is this event registered with Maple Ridge HOA? I blinked. "Let me stop you right there. This property isn't part of any HOA. Never has been." He furrowed his brow like I'd just told him water was dry. "You're within 1 mile of the Maple Ridge boundary. Under new association guidelines, this type of event may fall under—" "Yeah, no," I cut him off. "This is private property. I own it outright. If you're looking for jurisdiction, turn around." He didn't move right away, but he didn't argue either. Eventually, he turned and walked back to the group by the fence. They stood there a while longer, recording and whispering. I made a mental note to check the security cam footage later. The rest of the night went on without incident, but the air had shifted. That's the thing about unwanted eyes. You don't always notice them right away, but once you do, they never leave your periphery. Something told me the HOA wasn't finished with me yet, and I hate being right. There's something deeply satisfying about calling someone's bluff in public, especially when they've sent you a $25,000 fine for throwing a birthday party on your own land. A few days after the envelope from the HOA Fairyland arrived, complete with their ridiculous map trying to annex my property like it was the Sudetenland, I decided I wasn't just going to ignore it. I was going to respond. Loudly. So I organized a good old-fashioned Colorado cookout. Nothing too fancy this time. Grill, beer coolers, lawn chairs, some local musicians, and about 40 people I trusted not to burn the grass. No invites to officials or dignitaries this time. Just friends, neighbors, a couple of my crew guys from work, and Marv, the Marine vet who'd welded my gate hinges last year and could probably break someone in half using only disdain. We set up in the backyard again, not far from where the HOA camera crew had loitered the previous weekend. I even added a new touch. A big plywood sign at the edge of the gravel drive that read, in hand-painted red letters, "Private Property. Not part of your HOA delusion. Keep moving. About 2 hours into the barbecue, right around the time I was losing a ribs-eating contest to a guy half my size, I saw them. 3 figures approaching through the trees along the back fence. Same uniform, navy slacks, tucked-in polo shirts with the Maple Ridge HOA crest. Imagine a country club logo having an ego trip, and shiny little name badges clipped to their belts like they were TSA agents. One of them was familiar. Eric, the walking violation notice. I stepped forward before they got too close. "Gentlemen, evening. Don't suppose you brought potato salad?" Eric didn't laugh. He flashed a laminated document like it was a warrant. "We're here to inform you that this gathering violates the Maple Ridge Community Event Policy, Section 12.3. You've failed to obtain a neighborhood assembly permit, and we are hereby ordering you to cease the event." I stared at him blankly. "That's adorable." "You're in violation of community standards," another one added. This guy looked like an off-duty mall cop with a clipboard fetish. "This isn't your community," I said, keeping my voice even. "You people don't have any authority here. This land is legally outside your jurisdiction, and unless you're law enforcement, you're trespassing." Eric raised his chin. "We've contacted the local sheriff. An officer will be arriving shortly to resolve the matter." "Perfect," I said. "I'll put a beer on ice for him." About 10 minutes later, a black and white sheriff's vehicle pulled up on the main road. One deputy got out, young guy, mid-30s, polite posture but clearly not thrilled to be here. Following close behind, like a moth to controversy, was Linda Griffiths herself, decked out in a pearl-button blouse and heels absolutely unsuited for rural grass. She carried a red binder under her arm like it contained the 10 Commandments of suburban oppression. "Mr. Hastings," she called out before she even hit the gate, "we need to have a serious discussion about your repeated violations." I folded my arms. "Linda, I don't know what kind of HOA fantasyland you're living in, but this property isn't yours. Never was. Never will be." The sheriff stepped between us. "Let's keep this civil. Mr. Hastings, may I see any documents regarding your property line?" "Gladly," I said, and walked to my truck, returning with a folder containing the deed, the title history, the property survey, and a blown-up map from the county land office, all properly sealed and notarized. Linda tried to push forward her red binder. "Here's our amended jurisdictional plan." The deputy didn't even take it. "Ma'am, unless this is filed with the county and officially recorded, it's not enforceable." She looked like someone had slapped her with a zoning code. That's when the real show began. While everyone was distracted, one of the HOA rent-a-cops tried to sneak around the side of the house toward the generator we were using for the speakers. Marv caught him halfway there. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" he asked, arms crossed, all 6'2" of him blocking the path like a brick wall with combat boots. We had a noise complaint," the guy stammered. "You're not police. Touch that generator and you'll find out real quick why Marines don't bluff." The guy backed off, but the tension had spiked. One of the caterers, a young woman in her 20s, stepped out with a tray and accidentally bumped into another HOA goon. The guy shoved her. Nothing dramatic, but enough to make her stumble. She didn't fall, but it was enough for 3 people to whip out their phones and start filming. I turned to the deputy. "Still think this is civil?" He sighed, pulled out his notebook, and started taking statements. I could tell even he was getting tired of this nonsense. Me? I was just getting started. I figured after the public humiliation Linda and her little patrol suffered at my barbecue, they'd crawl back into their cul-de-sac kingdom and lick their wounds. I underestimated just how delusional they were. 2 days later, I got a thick envelope in the mail, hand-delivered with "urgent" scrawled across the front like they were declaring war. Inside, a beautifully printed booklet titled Revised Jurisdictional Expansion Plan, Maple Ridge HOA. It looked official enough to fool someone half asleep. Glossy cover, fake seal, legal-sounding gibberish throughout. And on page 3, a map showing my property, clearly labeled with my name, as part of the Extended Buffer Zone. Buffer Zone. Like I was radioactive. Taped to the last page was a letter from Linda herself, claiming that due to my property's proximity, visibility, and impact on the neighborhood aesthetic, it was now considered under conditional HOA oversight. She generously waived the original $25,000 fine if I agreed to voluntary compliance going forward. Voluntary. As in, comply or else. My lawyer, Martha, laughed so hard on the phone, I thought she'd dropped her coffee. That map looks like it was drawn with a crayon and delusion. They're trying to retroactively zone you in through internal paperwork. Legally meaningless. Still, I scanned everything, emailed it to her, and uploaded a backup to my cloud. HOA nonsense or not, I wasn't taking chances anymore. That same week, my phone started lighting up with calls from strange numbers. Fire inspection, code enforcement, animal control, all claiming they'd received anonymous reports. Unsafe gatherings, unlicensed propane storage, illegal fencing, loose dogs. One inspector even asked if I was running an unauthorized farm-to-table business, because someone said they'd seen vegetables growing in commercial quantities. Vegetables. I had 3 tomato plants and a dying rosemary bush. It didn't take a genius to connect the dots. Every complaint was vague, unfounded, and conveniently timed after my run-in with Linda's militia. The kicker? Someone filed a noise complaint at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, when I was literally at a job site 20 miles away. When the third city inspector showed up in 1 week, I asked him straight out, "Be honest, am I on some kind of list?" He looked uncomfortable. "Off the record?" "Yeah. Someone's been very busy, but nothing we've seen violates code. You're good." Great. I was HOA enemy number 1, and they were using every trick short of a drone strike. Then came the real twist. One of my neighbors, Tim, good guy, retired engineer, dropped off a USB stick in my mailbox with a note. "You'll want to see this. Trust me." He used to attend the HOA meetings before resigning in disgust. Said he'd been recording some of them for personal records. I popped the drive into my laptop and hit play. There was Linda's voice, clear as day, saying, "If we keep pushing the narrative and filing pressure points, he'll eventually fold. Everyone folds when the money starts leaking." Another voice, male, sounded like one of the patrol clowns, chimed in, "Can't we just get the city to cite him into compliance?" Linda replied, "By the time he figures it out, the paperwork will be deep. Enough that he'll wish he never picked a fight with us." I didn't even feel angry, just cold. Focused. They weren't just posturing anymore. They were trying to drown me in bureaucracy and break me down by attrition. This wasn't a dispute. This was tactical harassment. And if they wanted a war of paperwork, I had a contractor's filing cabinet and a damn good lawyer ready to rumble. I called Martha. "It's time," I said. "Let's drag these suburban tyrants into the sunlight." You'd think, after being caught on audio, conspiring to break the law, someone like Linda would crawl back under her deck and wait for the storm to pass. Not her. Apparently, HOA presidents operate on some combination of pure ego and denial, because instead of backing off, she doubled down. Martha wasted no time. The day after I sent her the recordings, she filed a formal complaint with the county prosecutor's office and forwarded copies to the state attorney general's Consumer Protection Unit. We both knew this wouldn't result in handcuffs overnight, but it was enough to get things moving. More importantly, it put Maple Ridge HOA officially on the radar. Meanwhile, I started fortifying the estate like I was prepping for a siege. Because I was. I installed a full perimeter of motion-activated floodlights, reinforced the gates with commercial-grade locks, and added 4 more security cameras, all feeding directly to a secure drive and my phone. I wasn't paranoid. I was prepared. And not a moment too soon. 3 nights later, around 2:30 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the east gate. I checked the feed and saw 2 figures, dark clothes, baseball caps, carrying what looked like a bolt cutter and a crowbar. I didn't even pause. I hit the panic button on my security system and grabbed my sidearm. I'm not the shoot-first type, but I'll be damned if someone sneaks onto my land in the dead of night without consequences. By the time the sheriff arrived, fast, thankfully, the intruders were gone. But they'd been sloppy. One of them had yanked down one of my private property, trespassers will be prosecuted signs, and left behind a glove. We pulled fingerprints. Not surprisingly, the prints matched Eric, the same HOA goon who tried to shut down my second party. Next day, Eric denied everything when the deputy came calling, claimed he was at home with his cat. But the prints and video told a different story. Now he was looking at charges for attempted trespass and tampering with posted signage. If that wasn't enough, the same morning I found the east gate lock damaged, I also found my dog limping. Charlie, my lab, usually ran around like a missile fueled by tennis balls. But that morning, he wouldn't put weight on his front paw. The vet found bruising and a small wound, likely from a thrown object. A rock, maybe. My blood boiled. You don't hurt someone's dog and expect to walk away clean. Martha was furious. This isn't civil anymore. This is criminal harassment. And I'm going to make sure every inch of it lands in front of a judge. Things escalated from there. The sheriff's department started an investigation. More neighbors began whispering that Linda was getting reckless. One even said she was bragging about plans to have my property reassessed so it could be condemned for violations. Pure fiction, of course, but dangerous fiction when coming from someone who knows how to flood the system with complaints. That week, a small local YouTuber who runs a channel on HOA horror stories reached out. He'd heard rumblings from a Maple Ridge resident and wanted to film an interview. I agreed, cautiously. He and his cameraman came out, interviewed me, filmed the damage, and, at my request, blurred any personal details. I didn't want a circus, just light. The video went live that night. Within 24 hours, it had 300,000 views. The comments? Savage. This is what happens when Karen gets elected. I'd build a moat around that property next. But one message stood out. A private DM from a former HOA board member. I have documents, it read, and I'm ready to talk. I always believed in building things right the first time. Houses, fences, reputations. But if someone tries to tear that down with lies and paperwork, you don't just rebuild. You respond with reinforced concrete and a legal sledgehammer. Martha didn't waste a second. The morning after I got the message from the former HOA board member, his name was Daniel, by the way, soft-spoken guy with the look of someone who'd seen too much HOA nonsense, we met in her office. He brought a folder the size of a Thanksgiving turkey, full of internal memos, email printouts, and meeting transcripts from his time on the board. Some of it was embarrassing, some of it was outrageous, and some of it was criminal. Turns out, Linda had been pushing a quiet expansion plan for over a year. Her strategy was to gradually absorb properties bordering Maple Ridge by pressuring homeowners into voluntary compliance, then using those cases as precedent to redraw the HOA's jurisdiction. Several emails showed her coaching board members on how to forge zoning overlays and how to manipulate city departments into investigating non-HOA properties, under the guise of community safety. It was gold. Slimy, illegal gold. That same week, Martha filed 4 civil lawsuits on my behalf. 1. Unlawful trespass and vandalism for the late-night sabotage attempts and the damage to my signage and generator. 2. Defamation and harassment, covering the stream of false reports, neighborhood smear flyers, and the slander Linda spread through official HOA channels. 3. Animal cruelty by proxy for Charlie's injury, citing negligence and association with individuals acting under Linda's authority. 4. Fraud and document forgery, directly targeting the fake maps and forged jurisdiction documents. In total, we were seeking $250,000 in damages. Realistic numbers, not fantasy courtroom TV. Enough to sting, enough to expose, and more than enough to get the attention of people who wear ties for a living. But that wasn't all. Martha also filed a complaint with the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies, triggering a formal inquiry into Maple Ridge HOA's legal standing. Within days, the county zoning office received a request for review, and 2 investigators came out to my property to cross-examine the HOA's alleged extended buffer zone. They took one look at the official records and said flatly, "This isn't even close to legal." The final nail came from the state attorney general's office. The recordings we submitted, plus the YouTube video that had now hit 500,000 views, prompted their consumer protection unit to open a state-level investigation into HOA misconduct, targeting Maple Ridge and at least 3 other associations in Toiti, the region. Linda? She went silent. Completely. Not a peep on social media. No new letters. No HOA visits. I'd heard rumors she'd taken a break for her health, but I wasn't buying it. She was scrambling, and I knew it because the HOA vice president, same guy who once called me an unnecessary disruptor, suddenly emailed me a copy of their insurance provider's liability policy. I forwarded it to Martha with one sentence: "They smell blood." And they should have. We weren't just hitting back. We were burning the damn playbook they'd weaponized for years. Piece by piece, the machine was breaking down. And now all we had to do was push it into court and let gravity do the rest. Because this wasn't about a barbecue anymore. This was about burning down the myth that HOA power was absolute. And I was just getting warmed up. Courtrooms have a certain smell. Old wood, recycled air, and the slow-burning stress of 100 bad decisions made by people who thought they were untouchable. Linda looked like she belonged there, just not on the winning side. She came in late, trailing her lawyer like a shadow with a designer purse. She was dressed like she thought this was the Met Gala of neighborhood oppression. White blazer, pearl earrings, and that same smug expression that had probably terrified PTA boards across 3 counties. Martha, on the other hand, wore her usual practical heels, a navy blazer that said Harvard Law without screaming it, and a calm smile that meant someone was about to bleed out metaphorically. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Harrington, got straight to it. She flipped through the stack of filings like she was reading last week's gossip and gave Linda's attorney a deadpan look. "Counselor, are you aware that none of the documents submitted by your client carry official zoning certification from the county?" Linda's lawyer stammered something about internal HOA jurisdiction and good faith expansions, but the judge wasn't having it. "Good faith doesn't give you authority over land you don't own," she snapped. "If I drew a map including the Starbucks across the street in my backyard, it wouldn't mean I get free coffee." I almost laughed. Almost? Then came our turn. Martha laid it out with surgical precision. Every complaint, every video, every forged document. She projected side-by-side maps. One from the official zoning office and the other from Linda's imaginary kingdom. Even the stenographer raised an eyebrow when the fake seal on the HOA's version had a typo, Maple Ridge. Next came the video from the barbecue, the shove, the sabotage attempt, Charlie's vet report, the recording from Daniel with Linda outlining her plan to paper this guy into submission. Linda tried to object. "Your Honor, that recording was obtained without—" "Sit down," the judge said, not even looking at her. Then the cherry on top. Financial records showing HOA funds being used to pay for private security patrols, including gas reimbursements for Eric's nightly drives past my gate. One entry was labeled Buffer Zone Visibility Enhancement. No one could explain what that meant. By the time Martha rested our case, there wasn't much left to say. Linda sat frozen, her eyes darting, jaw clenched. Her lawyer leaned so far back in his chair, he looked like he was trying to escape into the floor. Judge Harrington tapped her pen, looked over the rim of her glasses, and delivered the blow. This court finds the defendants liable on all 4 counts. HOA actions were conducted outside their legal jurisdiction and under false pretenses. Damages awarded to the plaintiff, $250,000. HOA operations suspended pending state review. Individual actors will face additional investigation. Linda didn't speak. She didn't blink, but her hands curled into fists, like she was trying to crush the air. I didn't smile. Not yet. Because justice wasn't just about the verdict. It was about what came next. You know that strange silence after a storm, the kind where everything feels too still, like the air itself is holding its breath? That's what it was like on my land the week after the verdict. No patrol cars cruising by, no mail stuffed with HOA nonsense, no anonymous complaints about my garden hose being too visible from the road. Just birds, wind through the trees, and the sound of Charlie snoring under the porch swing like a dog who knew the war was over. But I wasn't about to let it end with a courtroom ruling and a check. I wanted it carved into memory. Mine, theirs, the whole damn state, if I had my way. So I threw one more event. This time, not a party. A statement. I called it a victory picnic, though I left that part off the flyers. Officially, it was a neighborhood fundraiser for local veterans and animal shelters. Unofficially, it was my way of planting a flag and daring anyone to challenge it. We had live music, food trucks, a dunk tank, which may or may not have featured a cardboard cutout of Linda, and a stage where Charlie was crowned Honorary Defender of the Estate with a tiny gold medal clipped to his collar. Marv grilled burgers like he was feeding the Marine Corps, and even the mayor showed up with his wife and a cooler of microbrews. But the real highlight came in the form of a 10-foot custom sign I had bolted into the front gate, made from reclaimed steel and powder-coated in black. Private property. Not yours. Not HOA's. Not negotiable. People lined up to take photos with it. The HOA horror stories. YouTuber came back and filmed a follow-up segment that got nearly 1 million views in a week. The comments section was a digital bonfire roasting Maple Ridge HOA into oblivion. I started getting emails from across the country. Landowners, farmers, retired veterans, even a schoolteacher in Arizona who'd fought off a similar HOA land grab and just wanted to say, "Thanks for reminding us we're not crazy." One message came from a state representative's office. They'd seen the story. They wanted to know if I'd be willing to speak at a hearing about HOA accountability legislation. I wasn't a politician, but I knew damn well how to look someone in the eye and tell the truth. So I said yes. Linda? She vanished. Some said she sold her house. Others claimed she moved in with her sister across the state. No one knew for sure. Her name didn't come up at the fundraiser, and no one asked. The HOA board was gutted, replaced with new blood who, ironically, wanted nothing more than to limit their own power going forward. As for me, I walked the fence line that evening with a drink in my hand, watched the sun dip low over the trees, and felt something I hadn't in months: stillness. The kind you earn. Kate joined me, leaned on my shoulder, and asked, "Think they'll ever try again?" I smiled. "If they do, they better bring lawyers and lunch." We both laughed. Because now this wasn't just a house. It wasn't even just our land. It was a line in the dirt. And I'd made damn sure everyone saw where it was drawn.